Revelator John.
Hello, welcome to Revelator John. How does geography affect weather? Well, the weather is a factor, a resultant, if you like, of the variation in temperature, pressure, volume and moisture content within the atmosphere itself. Different levels of surface heating and also that surface radiation will create different weather patterns over the world, and also depending on the pressure systems that will create different weather patterns as well. However, the actual geography itself has a huge impact on what kind of air mass and what kind of pressure system will actually then generate weather itself. Now an air mass, as we said in other videos, tends to adopt the properties over which the surface of the surface over which it's moving. So for example, if it's moving over an ocean, it will be a relatively moist air mass. If it's moving over a land mass, it will be a relatively dry air mass, and all the variations in between. So dependent on that will make it very moist air, mildly moist air, mildly dry air, very dry air. It'll also determine whether it's warm air, mildly warm, mildly cold, very cold air, all affecting the potential to be able to hold moisture, all the ability to promote or to inhibit vertical movement of airflow, which ultimately will lead to condensation within the atmosphere, cloud formation, and that would lead to rain, thunderstorms, lightning, hail, whichever weather phenomenon we want to actually consider. Further geography then will create weather systems or create weather dependent on its ability to deflect or change weather patterns or weather systems or wind itself. So for example, if we have a mountain peak or a mountain range, then that may interfere with the normal movement of air, which may force air vertically upwards, thus creating rapid cooling of moist air. So for example, on a mountain range, on the windward side, if the wind is bringing an air mass from over the ocean, that's warm moist air being driven inland. As it meets the mountain range, it's forced to rapidly rise, thus cooling, condensation occurs, and that's where we get lots of rain on the windward side as we're approaching the mountain. Most of the cloud and the rain dissipates. The cloud has burnt itself out, for want of a better word, as it reaches the peak and just over the peak, and thereafter there is a clearer sky. So a lot less rain on the leeward side, a lot more rain on the windward side. That's a classic geographical effect of on weather. If we could also look at how higher ground will be colder, lower ground will be warmer, then we can have airflows, katabatic winds, downward flowing winds or adiabatic winds, climbing winds up mountain slopes, that kind of thing. That can affect and create a fog, low level clouds, that kind of thing. We could also have a combination of cloud formation at mountain ranges coupled with higher winds creating turbulence. We can have particular types of clouds which are called lenticular clouds or standing lenticular clouds, which are almost like flying saucer shaped clouds that form around the peak of a mountain on the leeward side of the mountain as well. So there are lots of geographic causes to weather, and it really depends on how the geography itself disrupts airflow, disrupts or causes air to rise by itself, or fall into colder air, or warm air to rise into colder air as well, and that would create different levels of condensation. Obviously, wind, any obstruction to the wind will create turbulence and can also have a channeling effect on the surface of wind, especially in the valleys and things like that. So any obstruction to the wind, any mountain, any ridge line, any hillside will create that kind of thing as well. So the different levels of heat retained by different amounts of geography will also leads to different types of weather as well. So if we have a particular geography that is radiating a lot of heat, then that would lead to a lot of thermal activity, a lot of convective activity potentially. However, if we have a geography that is not radiating a lot of heat, it hasn't received a lot of solar energy, for example, and it hasn't released it thereafter, then it will be a relatively stable vertical air mass. So geography has a tremendous effect on weather. It affects the causes of weather, but it also contributes and morphs the effects of weather as well. Thank you.